I call it vertical music because it's all happening simultaneously. It's not linear. I guess I was initiated into continuous present time. The whole picture, the whole event is present and accessible at any point within the event. So it was that experience of vertical music, of hearing that sound in that paranormal ceremony that caused me to reach for a way of referring to it. This unearthly sound, this all-pervading current.
That's right. It's like when everything is simultaneous, everything is now. Eternity is now.
Yo!
I'm just quoting you. I've been listening to lots of things. May I quote you again?
Yes, you got me hooked.
Welcome to Voices of Esalen. I'm Sam Stern. Today I'm so pleased to bring you the recording of a live edition of our show with a guest whose journey intertwines music, comedy, spirituality, and a profound well of universal wisdom, the incomparable Laraaji. Laraaji is often thought of as one of the progenitors of New Age music, a genre that at times he resists and in many ways exceeds. His journey is as eclectic as it is enlightening. After studying classical composition at Howard University's College of Fine Arts from 1962 to 1964, Laraaji was initially drawn to the world of stand-up comedy, and though that career path did not blend well enough with his burgeoning interest in spirituality, laughter remained a key trope in the composition of his life, which you'll see he kept me on my toes with a persona that was in many parts trickster that pleasantly offset the meaningful koans of wisdom that he gifted the audience and myself throughout the interview. Laraaji's approach to creating music and to making speech, it's a deep and practiced meditative process that invites both the performer and the listener into a state of present moment awareness, awakening a dormant understanding that everything in the universe is interconnected and perhaps playing out simultaneously. Beyond this unique perspective, Laraaji is very simply a musical genius. He's very, very prolific with more than 50 albums to date and a full 2024 performance schedule. Please check out his work. It's available on all streaming services, not to mention at independent record stores, and it provides a wonderful companion to meditation, to journeying, to walking, to breathing, to being. It was so cool to have him and his partner Arji Oshiananda at Esalen for a week this December as part of Esalen's inaugural Go Within series, curated and hosted by Sadia Bruce. Amazing event, also featuring performances from Mary Lattimore and Snow Raven. Simply unforgettable. It'll be back next year and you don't want to miss it. All right, Laraaji, formerly Larry Gordon, and I sat down and did this in front of a live studio audience in late December 2023. So join as we enter the multifaceted world of Laraaji. Prepare to be inspired, amused, and quite possibly moved. We begin with a beautiful micro concert performed by Laraaji and Arji Oshiananda.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam. I still struggle with how to receive the word thank you, because I think what you're saying is you appreciate what has happened here. And I appreciate it as well. And I feel it's a unified field that is doing all of this right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that God does the work, I take the check to the bank.
Oh man. Well, I want to start off by bringing us back to Howard University, 1962. What brought you to want to go to Howard? And is it true that you wanted to be a chemical engineer growing up?
Yes, Sam, very much so. That I was focused on becoming something in the engineering department, architect or chemical engineer. I was impressed with the images of DuPont, the idea of having a white coat standing outside of a DuPont factory next to a Mercedes-Benz. That's what drove my interest. And so I studied chemistry in high school and took all the right courses for getting into MIT or Rensselaer Polytech or Stevens. And at the same time, I was working on a clothing chain called Robert Hall Clothing. You've heard of Robert Hall?
No, I just knew that your dad was a tailor.
Yes, right. So, yes, so anyhow, working at Robert Hall's clothing store, one night business was slow and the salesman came over to me and started talking about things. They said, you know, Howard has a beautiful, highly prestigious music school. And I said, really? Right then, something inside of me shifted. I said, I don't really want to be a chemical engineer. I want to follow the calling of music.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I went to my physics teacher, who was very proud of me. He says, I'm not going to go to MIT, I'm going to go to music. And I don't ever recall seeing a smile on his face again in the school system.
What kind of music were you interested in studying when you were at the College of Fine Art there?
Classical music, piano music, because that was what I was required to do, and also theory and composition of music. So, in the practice rooms, I would do an hour of scales and arpeggios, and then an hour of free flow, spontaneous jam.
Yeah.
And so those two things were going on, explorational and also rigid discipline of the piano, to learn how to move over the keyboards with that look that look like you know what you're doing.
Yes.
That's what I used to do when I was young. I'd imitate great piano players, and I'd look like I know what I'm doing. And now when I do that, legitimately, I say, that behavior looks familiar. I find that when I'm in improvisation now, it's that body language, that open body language, that I learn how to put the fingers on the right notes.
Yeah, so you were studying composition, so is someone who creates composition, is that diametrically opposed to the kind of work that you do now? Because I think of you as someone who can do improvisation. So what was it like when you were creating like a rigid sort of structure with your music?
You know, at the beginning of it, I thought, boring. But when I found out it's stored energy, that I'd get bored, but I'd keep doing it for 5 or 10 minutes. Then I'd let go of the rigid, and I'd fly off into some of these most out-of-sight improvisations. So the discipline is a way of actually containing or focusing energy, and then knowing how and when to release it. The improvisations that resulted or are resulting is very impressive.
Yes, yeah, that's fascinating.
Quite so, Sam. That was so sweet of Archie on the kalimba there.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because I find that having people play with, that a sense of minimalism works good, and to be able to handle minimum, even though you want to do a lot, to look, I'm doing a lot, but a little, they say less is more.
Were you exposed to any of the sort of music that you play now when you were at Howard in the College of Fine Arts? Were you exposed to kind of experimental? Was there any sort of like early electronic music that you heard?
No, Sam.
Nothing like that.
No. It was strictly classic and devoted to the classics. No experimental lace. In my practice room, I would just go off. When the guard would come by, I'd look like I'm doing my lessons. The guard go by. But the practice rooms were where I would experiment. I remember once, somebody named Bobby Timmons. You ever heard of Bobby Timmons?
No.
Oh, good, then I can say anything about him. He was a famous jazz pianist who had visited Howard University, like leisurely, and he came down into the practice room and heard me doodling, and he said, "You got potential for a jazz pianist." That sort of set a little fire You know, it's almost like my dean of my college, Howard University. One day I was in his presence with another teacher, and they were like, this young man's not doing his homework. And he said, I don't understand this brilliant mind that he has. And that just impressed me, brilliant mind. It just shifted my sense of performance in college after that.
Let me ask you this, when you left college, you had this idea to do comedy as opposed to going to music, and I'm wondering what was the seed of that? How did that develop?
Comedy on and off stage has always been maybe first nature. With cousins, aunts, uncles in school, doing skits and programs on talent shows. They'd be scripts, they'd be improvs, and it was fun dreaming them up. And as got to college, did the same thing. Funny people gravitate toward each other at college. Sooner or later, after the first week or so of college, I got to know who was funny, and we'd find out, and hey, let's do a comedy team. And that's what we do for several years. And the comedy teams were pretty good. So somebody said, you should go to the bitter end like Bill Cosby, New York, and do that. And I said, boing. Go to New York, make a lot of money, get a fancy apartment with a big old red rug, and put down a big concert grand Baldwin piano. Ow! And then I would continue writing music. That was the plan.
Okay.
So my buddy and Charles, we decided we were come home for Thanksgiving, he to Jersey, both of us to Jersey, then go to the bitter end on Tuesday. You know what happened, Sam? I got to the bitter end, there was no Charles. I had to shift the whole routine to one person.
Wow.
And it went over good. They said, you should come back and try again.
What kind of material were you working with?
Silly.
Observational, like early Seinfeld?
No, sort of like extremely silly. We knew what silly was in college, but it was slapstick too. It was me trying to explain what it's like. Well, Jonathan Winters was one good direction, and Richard Pryor was another direction. I got my inspiration to write comedy for myself by just sitting down and pondering, why is it people have laughed in my presence over my lifetime? It's just, well, possibly because I was doing something they couldn't understand and I looked silly doing it, or even dizzy. So that was the image, I think, so I honed in on that dizzy image. And but at the same time, I was starting to study the mind science and laws of consciousness and how we attract into our lives things that we consciously and unconsciously choose. I have to make some conscious, informed choices here. That's what.
And so at that point, did you start to phase the comedy and the acting sort of out of your system, or?
Yes, I put on a down low. I decided that the material was not appropriate for the direction in which I was allowing my evolution to unfold.
What was the seed of that kind of like spiritual genesis? How did that come into your being?
Jesus!
Jesus was the seed.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
It was Jesus. So every time you say Jesus, you have to mentally go vertical and hit the G current head on, so that you're just full of energy. Jesus!
So you had the seed of Jesus.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It was, I followed his lead. I took baptism at the age of 12, I think it was, at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. Because up to then, I didn't know that our church had a trap door under the preacher pulpit. That's where the baptism tank was.
Okay.
So on baptism day, this is a surprise. Preacher says, come up the stage. And I said, oh. Then he opened the trap door with water. I said, wow. If Jesus did it, I can do it. Yeah. So I got baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Sure.
But after college, you're sort of like the tail end of the acting stuff. Did you increase the study? Did you read like a pivotal book, or? we
Yes,
introduced
I
to
did.
meditation?
I did, Sam.
Yes.
Glad you asked that question. It was. It was I think one of the first two books that impressed me was Baba Ram Das's Be Here Now and Krishnamurti's Think on These Things. Think on These Things. And it's a unique time, I guess, in conscious existence to feel the fabric of the universe shift because your understanding of what's going on is shifting. An inarticulable density in the field just vanished when I started investigating matters and practices of the higher stream. Yes, it's like you're turning on a different frequency of light that shows a different layout of the land.
Yeah. And you started to really like that feeling. Did you have a meditation practice?
It had me. Yeah, it convinced me that how meaningful it was that I just explored at the beginning, not knowing what I was really looking for.
Yeah.
So it's Richard Hittleman. You ever heard of Richard Hittleman?
No.
A lot of people you don't know about, Sam.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know about him before I knew about him. So he wrote on meditation and yoga in a language that I, as a Westerner, could comprehend. Because up till then, I really thought that meditation was, that the Hindus had a monopoly on it. I was trespassing. So I found that Richard Hittleman used the term transcendental meditation in a way that didn't sound like it belonged to a group. And it inspired me to explore about 3 different techniques, well, to get into meditation. One, learn how to sit still for 21 minutes in a chair, focus on something, and just allow the breath to flow, but get the attention to stay focused on one point. And I discovered that a different version of present time universe slips into view, if I can hold out that long. And the second was find a breathing practice or technique that I could just jumpstart me into the meditation zone. When I heard that breathing can relax tension from your body, and even laughter, as we show that can take us into the Shavasana relaxation zone. So how to get into the relaxation zone? Because I accept that relaxation, deep relaxation and meditation can be one and the same experience. In deep relaxation, we are available, we are uninterrupted witness, more boundaryless nature of self appears. And I say after 21 minutes, a different version of, I say, my own presence appears into my own awareness. And so this to me was transcending. And also the third part of it is that before going into meditation, sitting, take off all titles and names and classifications that are used for me now, have ever been used. All of the good ones, all of the impressive ones, all of the society obligated ones, just take off every title and sit with what's left, the I am without any modifiers. And then sit with that for 21 minutes and receive information from within. This is link up with the inner current. This is what shifted my approach to music. It's a learning that I could bring my inspiration out of the meditative alignment place. If I just practice on facilities and let spontaneity, just being hooked up to the current, just come through. This is as we are a conduit or a transmitter. And that's when the magical music happens, because it's no longer my music. I was saying earlier, when you thank me for this, I feel that it's a timeless current that is creating everything at the same time. This concert is not a separate entity unto itself, but it's the entire present time here, this way.
Do you think of your music as channeled music, or is it that slightly different?
Channeled music is a good question. I would say channeled if I have a clear understanding of what I mean and not get caught up into what it might mean to someone else. Channeling, being a conduit through which, by means of which, as which, an energy, character, or tonality is presencing. Is presencing. So channeling not through me, but as this which is this. The channel disappears or doesn't disappear, or doesn't disappear. And just the energy, the character is present.
Right.
So what's next?
Yeah, no, I'm interested in your evolution across the 70s. Kind of the acting and the stand-up comedy is sort of, it's lower, and the musicianship is kind of moving up, and we find you in the 70s. Are you playing in group, or are you playing like alone? You know, I know by the end of the 70s you're doing a lot of kind of busking outside, you know, Washington Square Park, but what was the evolution like?
Yes, it was a short period of playing with a jazz R&B rap group called Winds of Change.
Wow.
When the auto harp, electric auto harp, became my instrument of convenience, and I began researching that out on the sidewalks of Putney Swope, New York in the late 70s. And it evolved into a way of earning money. I didn't call it busking, I call it experimenting with transmitting altered states of consciousness with your zither case open. And just, but I was interested to see just how much of what I call my meditative state, how would it influence New Yorkers? And I was impressed very much that I could, in meditative alignment, I would say the alignment is the intention, whatever I am aligned in, this is my intention. So I hold this intention of a meditative field, and the meditative field, what comes with it is this expansive, direct, I can call it visual, emotional immersion experience. It's a subtle, it's here, and so I can be in it, and the person standing next to me could not be in it. So it might be my own co-creation, but it is timeless and weightless, and I can mentally live within it, practice doing things within it, and make it my home and establish it. It's in investing in this abstract real estate.
I've heard you talk about your music as vertical music, like it can stop anywhere, it could start anywhere.
Yes, I use the term vertical from a musical standpoint. You know, in the linear music, da 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 da. So that's a line, and you see it on manuscript paper as a line of notes that's linear, horizontal. And when I think of a chord, when all the notes are resonating together, and no one note really knows its identity outside of the cluster, you got vertical music or vertical space. And I do believe that in linear time I did attract a vertical sound immersion experience, and that it was so impacting that I have reason to believe it is compelling and driving the sound hearing experience I'm reaching for on this side of the veil. So I can call it a mystical experience or a paranormal hearing experience, which shifted the way that I experience, you go all time and space. I guess I was initiated into continuous present time, so that every point along the music is the whole musical available. That's sort of like a holographic thing, where the whole picture, the whole event is present and accessible at any point within the event. So it was that experience of vertical music, of hearing that sound in that paranormal ceremony, that caused me to reach for a way of referring to it. I was calling it, what was it? I went to the Lincoln Center Library to look for data on it, and there was a lot of data on that experience, and even pointed to the Bible, that in the beginning was the Word, that the term word is this unearthly sound, this all-pervading current. And I call it vertical music because it's all happening simultaneously. It's not a linear.
That's right. That's like when everything is simultaneous, everything is now. Eternity is now.
Yo.
I'm just quoting you. I've been listening to lots of things. May I quote you again? Cosmic time is the eternal present moment.
You got me hooked. Yes, cosmic time is the eternal present moment. One thing about this statement, it infers that the person listening is in their linear mind. And that's not where they're going to get the message.
Yeah.
So
what was it like playing in Washington Square Park when you're in the state, the unified field, and people rushing by might be, rushing to and fro? What happens to them?
They drop money in the cave.
I can't think of a more linear place than New York. At least in my mind.
Yes, people have relaxed, and they've seen passerbys in their business suits and attaché cases get on the ground in lotus position and listen, and there's this stillness that validates my suspicion that the frequency or the vibration of a meditative field can communicate itself through intentional sound, or sound plus intention equals healing is a phrase that's going around, and that the intention, holding the intention and performing simultaneously, if you wanted to call it performing or operating a musical instrument, something gets communicated. Yes. And I don't have to use a lot of words.
Yeah. So when you were performing, did you have your eyes closed?
Yes, I found that it's the way to reference the feel more efficiently.
Yeah.
Eyes closed. At the beginning I thought, am I really going to get away with this? People want eye contact. Hey!
Is it true when one of these times when your eyes were closed, Brian Eno came by and dropped a note in your guitar case or something?
Yes, this minute was on a regular night in Washington Square Park. Cobblestones, circles of cobblestones, and a tree at the center of the cobblestones. And around was art benches in a circle, like an artistic setting that you just want to sit down and play your zither in. So I'd done this a couple of times at that particular place and got good response. And one evening, this magical married couple came up to me and said, "Do you know Fripp and Eno? Have you heard Fripp and Eno's music? Fripp and Eno might be someone you would be interested in." And I was going to think, Fripp and who? Fripp and what? Fripp and how? I said, Fripp and Eno. And they convinced me that I should listen to Brian Eno's music and Robert Fripp. And I didn't get around to it until a month later. I'm in the same place and I finished playing, and there was a note from Brian Eno in the case. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? And I responded to the note, called the number. He was interested in my working on the ambient music series with him. And so we made an agreement, and within a week we started working on the Ambient 3 Day of Radiance album there at Greenwich Village. And I didn't really know who he was. I didn't have a chance to know who he was. And after we did the record, I started traveling around, and people would come up to me who I didn't know. They just started a nice conversation with me. And I said, who is this person? Where are they going? And they would reach into the pocket and pull out something like a record, or, can you get this to Eno? Okay, I'll try.
Did you think of your work as ambient previously?
I've learned how to think of it like that, because there seems to be a lot of directions for under the word ambient. I think of ambient as an environment or a field, however subtle, and that music can suggest a field, a place within which you're breathing, thinking, co-creating, or sitting still. It's like an environment that can maybe upstage your physical environment. Because I'm sure children do that with rock music, go into their rooms, slam the door, and blast the music.
Yeah.
So it's a space control. So you can call it ambient music. In my sense, I care to project from my experience with deep contemplation and meditation, a contemplative field.
Yes.
So the music is an ambient field. It might sound continuous or even mono character in acknowledging perhaps the needs of the person listening. So a quiet space, a psychologically peaceful terrain.
Were you Laraaji at that point? Was that 1980 or so?
Yes, by that time I had accepted the name Laraaji, and because it was mystically revealed to me. Up to that time, I was looking for a new name, a spiritual name. I knew it was going to be 3 syllables and something to do with the sun. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Playing music in front of a Harlem New Age bookstore a couple of times, just offering my music. The third time, the gentleman there said, "You know, we've been listening to your music, Ed, and and we get a different vibe from your music. And we've done some research and we've come up with a suggestion for a name for you." What? And that was the moment I said, wow. When someone walks up to you and says, "We've got a new name for you," you know what goes through your head? What if I don't like it?
Yeah.
So I said, let's meet in Central Park and we'll try it out. We meet in Central Park and they revealed this name to me, Laraaji. And it's an evolution from Larry Gordon to involve the Egyptian name for sun god, Ra.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, wow, 3 syllables, sun, this is a sign I should follow. So there was the name, Laraaji, initiated in Central Park, New York. And my concern was if I change my name now, will I think I want to change it again and again and again? So there's a devotion within it. The name actually refers to the sun as a divine being, and it's that serving the earth and the other planets in the galaxy.
Do you have a deep connection to the sun?
I do. When the sun is up, there's a magic that pervades my awareness. Yeah, the sun. And there's an inner sun too that I'm courting. You're a shadowless sun. It's more etheric. But the outer sun, with the right balance, don't stay in the sun too long. But I do appreciate the sun. And I understand the sun we're looking at isn't there. It's what, a few seconds or minutes away, the distance it takes.
Yeah, I heard that.
And I'm impressed. A whole year, we go around the sun, even as far away as it is from us now. We be moving.
Yes.
Yes. So, there's the solar energy.
Yes. At what time did you start wearing orange?
Hare Krishna played a big role because in the mid-70s, I did play music on the sidewalks of New York in the mid-50s with it. And that's where the Hare Krishna restaurant was. And the Hare Krishna restaurant offered all you can eat for $5 for lunch. And the musicians would go there. And you'd pass by the boutique. And there I began thinking, I'd like to try some of that. That looks interesting. So I started combining orange with white.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why I was doing it other than the energy, something about it, the frequency of the color, until a spiritual mentor later on connected the dots. He said, you had an inner initiation and it's trying to surface, and you're using the language of color. There's fire colors, a transformation. Sunset on the old way of knowing self, sunrise on the new way of knowing self. And with that, he handed me orange clothes. And I thought, whoa, holy moly.
Did this happen around the same time that you took on the new name? Was it around that?
After the new name, yes, after the new name. So there I was, feeling my way toward the inarticulable beyond, and using sound and music and color until a spiritual teacher can help me connect the dots. That you're doing that there and that there and that there, and this is what you're all trying to do together, and you want to unify and go in that direction. So you're on the fast track home, and his favorite line was, "Hurry home." And I would think, what do you mean, hurry? Until I got it, I think I got it. The fastest way home is to stop leaving. That's what I got. That it's here and now.
Yeah, thank you.
And I leave on the vehicles of thought. So when I take a vacation from thought and just stay without the titles and the names, stop leaving entitled The Names Stop Leaving. Stay for a long while.
Would you say that your musical practice is your most reliable path towards the unified field of consciousness, or do you have other practices that will get you there?
As you're asking me that, I believe sound is, even if it's not external sound, internal sound, just call it the etheric sound current. Yes, quite so. And when I hear of ones who don't like music, then I'm feeling that they're right. They probably don't like music as where it takes them, if the outer music. But the inner current, which is no ending or beginning, is a perfect object of focus to lift consciousness out of the personal limited I am into the universal I am. So it's a very handy, portable, accessible tool. And when you listen, when I listen, it sounds like the sound of nothingness. And nothingness is valuable. Nothingness is valuable. And so the sound of no thing, it's very thin, high end. In some traditions, there are 10 manifestations of this inner hearing experience. It may sound like crickets, buzzing of bees, a conch shell, the roaring of ocean surf, choir of angels, the sound of horns. The experience I had was the sound of multiple layers of horns weaving this most glorious, eternal textual pad. The emotional response was just swelling up, falling in love with all the cosmos, feeling the reality of the present unifiedness of everything and knowing eternalness here and now. Jesus brought me here.
Yeah, in your way, yeah.
Yeah, the energy, being impressed with what Jesus supposedly had done. He researched. He went to India or Egypt and in the mystery schools. Now that kind of expanded my awareness of who it was I was admiring. So it pointed to the mystery schools. So that's what I think I did.
Yeah.
Some investigate mystery schools through books and teachers.
Right. Let me ask you this. As you were gaining notoriety, gaining probably a kind of a groundswell of popularity over the course of the 80s, you put out album and you keep on putting out other albums. How did you deal with your own popularity? And I ask this in a certain sense to get at sort of, when I think about dropping outside of the unified field of consciousness, the ego can really get in the way. And I'm wondering about the ways that you have managed to stay grounded, real, yourself, even in the face of people coming up to you and telling you you're so wonderful.
My practice, my inner practice, if I'm continuously identifying self as this field, then I'm never just in New York, or I'm never just on the earth plane. There's a balance of walking in terra firma and hovering as a unified field. And I interpret things differently. If someone says thank you, I know they're feeling probably a presence that is bigger than both of us.
Yeah.
And I'm the most available person to thank for it at the time. So learning how to accept that is an exercise.
Yeah.
Repeat that question one more time.
Does your popularity...
Oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. But it was very friendly and gentle, because popularity was expressed through New Age conferences, meditation centers, ashrams. I had not really suspected I would ever get here, but the places I had gotten to were like annual New Age conferences on college campuses. And the popularity was very gentle, because there are people who are working on lessening their attachments in life, or they have an inner meditative connection which allows them to not put so much responsibility on the world for their peace of mind.
I just think about the sensibilities that you bring forward in your music, and I feel like they're somehow aligned with the psychedelic experience. And I'm curious if you feel a kinship towards that psychedelic experience or psychedelic music, and whether psychedelics or cannabis in some ways have influenced the direction of your music.
The people around me have been very influenced by They have been. As a matter of fact, I'm buddying up to the latest term is non-human intelligence. I believe my friends have been contacted by non-human intelligence very early in their early 20s and have been directed to explore and experiment with consciousness-altering practices in collaboration with sincere spiritual self-investigation.
Yeah.
And that what has resulted with my friends was an opening of awareness and understanding into the more subtle realms that the words alone couldn't deliver to their imagination.
Right.
If you're doing spiritual practice, there's a statement that whatever you're doing, it'll take you in the direction of your... In terms of cannabis, if you're going down, it'll take you down. If you're going up, it'll take you up. So setting your intention, living that intention, maybe intensely 45 minutes before ingestion, is to influence the direction. And the direction toward opening and being present to channeling higher energy is very educational.
Yeah.
Very educational and very evolving, very evolutional material.
Yeah.
And so channeling as a way of self-evolution, I accept.
Yeah.
And so the use of cannabis appears to, at least for my friends, to be something you should take responsibility for if society isn't going to help you take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And to find teachers or mentors who you resonate with and who seem to understand there is a connection between exploring altered states and having a sense of your transcendental ground or sense of who you are as a pure I am.
Yeah. Have people asked if they can use your music as guide?
Yes,
in the journey?
I'm getting, people have used it, are using it, and ever since the early day of radiance, I hear different reports. People use it to quiet their classrooms down, and then I hear of Japanese teenagers who used to get high, turn out the lights and put on Day of Radiance. I said, oh yeah? And I've been made aware of the connection between this music and people who practice ceremonies.
Yeah.
It's plant medicine ceremonies.
Great.
And it feels good, it feels right. Because there's a lot of understanding I feel I'm able to enter into that could have been accessible if I'd done maybe a very strong, austere life. But this, some says, is a shortcut. But I think it's just owning that the plant, non-human intelligence, is as much a part of our evolution as weak we are without it.
Yeah. When you're in this field of unified energy and you're making music, you're running energy, how do the decisions get made? How do you create your music in terms of, change, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that, because feeling, it's about feeling it through. Feeling and faster than I can think about it. It's free falling, or some call it the flow state. And it can be initiated on the first note, just plucking the first note. And if the intention is engaged, instruments, it's supra-conscious intention. The field is the intention. Then I'm not just playing the 36-string harp. 36 strings is a numerological symbol for completion. 36 equals 9, 9 is the number of completion. So this instrument is actually a tool for rapporting with the whole universe. If I break a string on there, the universe can make it with 35 strings. The strings used to break when I played outdoors, and that's a spiritual exercise. What do you do when a string breaks?
Yeah.
How do you respond?
Yeah.
And learning how to relax, it shows me if I'm really relaxed. If a string breaks and string broke, I keep going. And if sometimes I used to think it was voodoo and that the police department was getting even with me. But that paranoia would come up, and suddenly then I stopped. Just say, it's up to me. Stop waiting on the world to make it okay. So I decided to learn how to relax. And relaxation is really on the breath and intention. You're taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your mother.
My mother?
You had a mother, didn't you?
Yeah. I did.
Because my mother used to say that. Take care of yourself and you're taking care of me. That's why I was in her phone calls.
Love that. What are your pathways to bliss, ecstasy, euphoria?
This moment. And have a passion, practice, and a project. Gotta have a project.
Yeah.
Can't be sitting around perfect. Interesting, a creative, fun-filled project. Yes.
Is there anything that you specifically avoid to avoid experiencing anger, jealousy, strife?
I'd say yes, but avoiding the no longer necessary, the no longer essential tangents or detours. By embracing the one, how deeply one can, I feel you're avoiding the separation instead of trying to avoid the separation. That's where I was going. I'm not avoiding as much as I am embracing, and the byproduct of that is the more light, the less shadows, something like that.
I like that. Anybody out in the audience with a burning question? Can we pass you a mic or something like that? Maybe
Here comes a mic.
So this is a special question for you. Having hugged you earlier today and talked to you about dance, I want to ask you, where does your body fit into your work and movement?
What is my body? How do I bring my body to my work?
Yeah.
Yes, dancing. Specifically, thank you, Mike Bearer. That the last few years I've been playing with the Gabriel Roth 5 rhythms dance approach, and that has become like a blueprint for my musical improvisation dance movement. Before that, I did not give myself wholeheartedly to things like staccato and chaos in my music. And I thought, I'm new age, I can't be seen doing that. So that liberated me, the whole body field, all the rhythms, the flowing, the staccato, the chaos, the lyrical, and the stillness. The body, I'm glad you asked this question, that more I dance doing performance, movement, now I just open up, and interaction with the instrument is a byproduct of me being in that run, as you said, running that movement, running that intention. And the 5 rhythms can literally sculpt my concert performance, 45 minutes, 7 minutes of each of those rhythms. Chaos it's a revolutionary one for me because chaos seems to match my initiation with the paranormal hearing experience. It's chaos of just the entire field without a distinct form. Just everything is blending into one another, and you could say sweet chaos. So learning how to be in chaos allows me to just devote myself with more passion to those passages in my performance where I just get into chaos through music and let it be okay, because knowing I'm moving through chaos, not staying there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
So you mentioned Ra,
Yes.
sun, and I was curious, that made me think of Sun Ra.
Yes.
Made me think of improvisational jazz or whatever that was.
Yes.
Orchestra, and I was just wondering if that was music that fed you, and was there other influences that came to you in the impressionistic scene of the 70s and 80s, and Sun Ra in particular, with that whole sort of construct?
It's very observant because Sun Ra music, first time I heard him was in Brooklyn one night at a performance space, and I had no what to expect. It felt like he did a roto-rooter job on my Western concept of music, and it kind of liberated just hearing that. So that was Sun Ra's my first experience. The second experience was at a place called The Bottom Line in New York, and his dancers wore cosmically suggestive outfits, pyramid hats, silvery, looked like they stepped off a spaceship. And I was impressed with that kind of passion in setting the suggestion and the stage for your music. His music, famous for space is the place. Space is the place. And I can relate to that now. I think there's more space going on here than atoms. And I'm starting to appear in more festivals where his orchestra is still performing. The Sun Ra Orchestra. I thought he was a shining model of a cosmic direction of music expression.
Cool.
Thank you for the question.
With all the suffering in the world right now, wars, climate change, all of that,
Come on. You said all
Yeah.
that's going on. What else
there's
is
a
going
lot
on?
of suffering going on.
What
There's a
else is
lot
going
of
on?
goodness going
Oh,
on.
come on. Give it to me.
Okay, there's a lot of beauty going on.
All right.
And there's a lot of suffering going on. And I'm curious about how, if at all, that informs your music, what you do to work with that as a human being.
Very good question. This quote from Leonard Bernstein is to the effect that the crazier the world gets, the more intense and radical the artists get to balance it.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel that I'm called to do. So I do tune into the news, European news, BBC news, and just get a sense of what's going on and to see what is feeding the people's heads these days, and just knowing how much tension or anxiety is roaming around. So I just know how radical to get with peaceful expressions in my music, or just how ethereal to hold the current for a long while. So that I feel the etherealization of one's emotional body is a key to lightening up.
Yes.
If we're too dense and not balancing with the more etheric where we are,
Yeah.
it could be bottom heavy.
Yeah.
Earlier, when you were talking about your earlier training and the linear music, you talked about how that gave you the discipline and kind of framework, but then you could do the improvisation within that. I'm wondering, like the music you've been creating during the last couple of days, is it completely improv from the beginning to the end, or is there kind of a framework and you improvise within that, or is it all planned out? I'm just wondering what's the spectrum of improvisation versus kind of a framework and you know where you want to go with the music. If that makes sense.
Yes. I think what I do is I practice my language on an ongoing basis. practice the elements of my language, and put it together at the last minute. So let the feeling before performance to drop in to the intention, or drop in as the intention, and move in rapport, in conscious rapport within this timelessness. It's as a conversation. It's unfolding without me thinking 2 sentences ahead what I'm going to play or say. But the intention is holding this intention and a belief that at everyone's core there is this space, this knowingness that is responding. And the experiments that I've done is to see if I am in this place during performance, is there an intelligent response from whomever? And the experiment is that there is an overwhelming response at the etheric subtle frequency, that we are communicating or in communion with each other in a very invisible vibrational way. And we can choose to take responsibility for this higher self, this lighter self communication by deliberately affirming or praying or whatever you do to fill your consciousness with a higher frequency, whether it's color meditation or a mantra or service or whatever it is that keeps you mindful at this higher place, this higher frequency, this invisible place. This is where I feel the unified field is very obvious. And sometimes I think it's the cosmic net. If we're here, we can communicate through each other simultaneously. And maybe that's something the mycelium population on the planet, the mushroom planets, is probably modeling for us. Holding the space, knowing how to induct or treat. In mind science, this is treat, to affirm, and to get so deep at it that I'm affirming a total psycho-emotional field, intention, and bring this into and as the performance, so that it's the continuous mindful rapport within this space. And the music is automatic, it's spontaneous. I'm not thinking what I'm going to do next. But I have practiced my vocabulary so that my vocabulary is available to enter into this spontaneous storytelling or sound bath. My emerging feeling about the earth is that it's such a precious event, whether it's an experiment or whether it's intentional. Maybe it's a water garden. Today I think, what if the earth is really a water garden and they're growing water here? And just to honor the earth is wow, it's a wow experience to think of all the places we could have landed, or how many beings wanted to enter into a physical human body and take the earth plane. And we won the lottery. Here we are. This is, it's it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing, awesome. As I look over this wonderful world and I contemplate the origin of it all, what else could I be but blissed out for days and days and days?
One more.
This gentleman wanted to talk.
Thank you, that was so beautiful.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for sharing your beautiful voice. You discussed earlier that in your journey you explored mystery schools, and I would love to hear a little about what did you discover in the mystery teachings that feels most uplifting and inspiring for you?
I believe that the essence that you'd have to be having your own direct experience to get it. But one of the most, I think it's interesting, as I understand it, is the crossing from linear existence to eternal flow existence. And the mystical crossing, how that crossing is made, and understanding why it's difficult to make that crossing because it can't be made. But the attempts to make it, would sincerely, one gets in their way. It's really how, at what point does all your practice just suddenly qualify you to just be nowhere, doing nothing, totally empty, witnessing as an eternal consciousness. And that place is, so you can't get to that place. Once again, it says, you can only get here if you're here now. So somehow our thinking about who we are has to dramatically alter. As someone said, a block of soap, there's an elephant in there. If you sculpt away everything that isn't the elephant. So in this moment, there's an infinite, perfect, flowing consciousness. And learning how to sculpt what isn't that is tricky. How to do it without attachment. How to let go. It's more about how to embrace. And the embracing does the work. And the embracing can only be done now. Done here, so we can see if this is the elephant, how much of future and past do we have to carve away from this moment in order to really be immersed in this moment? How quickly? Can it be as quickly as 3 minutes of taking off all titles and breathing, or an hour and a half of yoga postures and breathing to settle into Shavasana, or deep spiritual work aligning with ceremony, or none of this. But this is where we're going, and so how do you get to here? There's the magical cross. How do you get to here? It's somewhere you stop going toward, and you stop coming from. And you are coming as this, which is so much this, at this time, being this eternal and this formless, this way.
Thank you so much for this glimpse, this bridge into unified field consciousness. Thank you for your heart, Laraaji.
It's an infinite delight. Om Shanti, 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 Shanti.
Thanks so much for listening to Voices of Esalen. Today's show was produced in conjunction with Shira Levine. Our theme music is by Nico Holloman. Esalen Institute is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing human potential and promoting positive social change. Your support helps us to continue to offer transformative programs and retreats that promote personal growth and collective well-being. Visit our website at esalen.org.